During last year's N7 Day, there was something that stood out amongst all the reveals, and I think it could be a clue. So let's cover my N7 agent theory, starting with the first mention of agents on the Mass Effect Twitter back in 2022. For 2022's N7 Day, we were given this relay teaser clip that had to be decoded to hear the scrambled audio, and this is the first time the fanbase is referred to as agents. Any other time the Mass Effect Twitter or devs have referred to the fanbase, they've referred to us as Commander or Pathfinder or Spectre, never agent, until this tweet that required some detective work. And then yesterday, the bioware gear store posted a tweet highlighting Spectre agent. And in the past, it's also just been Spectre, and no title has been highlighted like this either. So this feels a little intentional. And yes, I am overthinking this, but it feels important. And yes, Spectres are agents, but they're not referred to that in-game. They're just a type of agent, but agent isn't in their title. So, my theory is that N7 agent will be some kind of new faction or new division within the Spectre program, and they're called N7 agents, and this N7 character from the clip last year and the poster is our new protagonist, a new N7 Spectre agent. Not only does this outfit lean into a more stealth vibe, but they also have what looks like a silencer on their gun, and their visor completely obscures and hides their eyes. Every inch of skin and identity is completely covered, which wasn't the case with the traditional N7 armor. And again, you could argue that this is simply because they haven't revealed anything about who this is, and yes, I agree, you could argue that. But why the silencer? Why even have them turn around if you were going to hide their eyes anyways? It feels more intentional. This clip feels like it was conveying a mood and a setting for the next game. And I think that setting is that this is our new N7 agent protagonist. And as the N7 agent, we are infiltrating or will be more involved in espionage or something smaller scale that requires less bluntness than Shepard or even Ryder had. And I think they're showing this to us with the N7 Day teases. Each N7 Day has slowly been increasing in its detective work needed by the fandom. And you could argue that it's just a way to make the fans engage with the reveals. But I'd argue that this could be teasing us into a clue about Mass Effect 5. N7 Day 2021 had the Mass Effect Will Continue poster, which is still being analyzed to this day. We have a poster with intentionally obscured artifacts scattered throughout it, and possible hidden textures. So this was the first introduction of something that fans were given to analyze and think on. And then in 2022, they stepped it up and gave us an audio clip to decode. And this year was the first time the fanbase has been referred to as an agent. Everything released this year was intended to be broken down, and the fanbase had a ton of fun decoding that audio, which led to a big reveal. And with last year's N7 Day, we saw this again ramped up. And not only did we have to decode 3 different messages, which was very fun, we had to investigate the N7 photo and break down everything in the actual clip. And this interactive detective work went on for hours. They released several things over the course of several hours, which kept the fans engaged, but it also made them do some heavy digging into all the teasers. And all these teasers allude to some kind of encryption and message interception and codes that need to be unlocked. All of these aspects point to a more of an espionage aspect and emphasize on detective-like work. And the codes themselves tell a story of infiltration, of someone hacking a system. And then we see the N7, who very much looks discreet and elusive, and yes, you could argue, how could an N7 who clearly wears the branding be any type of spy? And I'm not really saying they're a spy, but I do think if you look at the context of all the teasers and the way they've been teased, it points to a more investigative agent type of character and story versus what we have known previously from Commander Shepard and Ryder. This N7 from last year also has more of a duster jacket that we've never seen from a military operative or Shepard. This jacket is more sleek and smaller in frame. This entire outfit itself leans more towards something that requires movement and speed versus the previous N7 armor, which is heavier and larger. This character looks like they're trying to be discreet, and while they may be an N7 still, they give the impression that they're more used to being in the underworld, sketchier places of the galaxy, which have kind of been reflected in the concept art. Additionally, from this N7 poster, we see the Paragon symbol in renegade colors, and I think a smaller espionage story that leans into morality could be a really good direction for Mass Effect 5 to go. A smaller scale story that lets you define the morality of your character in a setting that allows you to both be good and altruistic, or bad and morally corrupt. I think this is hinting towards the Paragon Renegade system returning, and I think a character like this would be the perfect way to reintroduce it. The way that I see Mass Effect 5 is that I think this will be a soft reboot into the franchise. I think this could be setting up a new trilogy and a new character to reintroduce us into the world. And I think a smaller scale story that brings us to the depths of Ilium or Omega would be the perfect reintroduction back into Mass Effect. Of course, there would be some kind of larger threat because Mass Effect threats have always been wide scale, but like Mass Effect 1, a smaller scale threat as a re-entry into the franchise after having Shepard save the entire galaxy seems much safer to do. Not only would it help establish where the franchise has been, but also where it's heading. And on top of this, it would be a good way to set up future games, especially if this is some kind of trilogy or duology with any type of sequel. Mass Effect 1 was a smaller scale story. It wasn't until 3 that you really feel the galaxy-wide scale threat of the Reapers. But the previous games had smaller, more isolated stories that were more focused on world building and character building. And this is what I hope to see from Mass Effect 5. It's been, as of right now, 12 years since Mass Effect 3, and 7 since Mass Effect Andromeda. And Mass Effect 5 isn't coming out for a while, so even more time will have passed, and it's going to be necessary for them to reintroduce the world to both returning players and new players, which will be the largest demographic that Mass Effect 5 will be marketed towards, because that's just how gaming works. And setting up a smaller story with something like the original intent from Mass Effect 1 would be perfect. Focusing on a smaller scale Jack Bauer-like story who is a federal agent would not only bring back Mass Effect to its roots, but it could also put a new but similar spin on the context of the world that we already know. And we've already seen several hints towards this game referencing Project SFX, which was Mass Effect's project name before it became known as Mass Effect. We've seen references to Epsilon and Oculon, both previous possible names for Mass Effect 1. So I do think they're hinting at a return to Mass Effect's roots. And I think a story inspired the foundation that Mass Effect was founded on which was originally about a Jack Bauer type character, could be really popular if Shepard doesn't return. Because I think at this point, I feel like I've kind of accepted that Shepard will not be returning. Not because I don't want them to, but because I think making them return would not be able to honor a lot of people's endings and choices, which I think really goes against the bioware formula. I think it's just too complicated to bring Shepard back, unless you do a smaller scale way, and that is only in playthroughs of people who chose the perfect destroy as their endings. But I don't think the people who prefer synthesis or control, or even reject, should have to have any endings forced on them. It also ruins replayability of the Legendary Edition, which was BioWare's most successful title. And let's be real, I don't think we'll ever get another character that is a commander if it isn't Shepard, because Commander Shepard is too iconic and too intrinsic to Shepard. We will get a new character with a new title, and I think that title could be Agent. So I think this is a new N7, I think this is a new character, and I think this is a new introduction into what Mass Effect is going to look like in the future. And I also think introducing a smaller scale story allows them to shape and mold the future. The future of BioWare is kind of uncertain right now, and I wonder if they're even planning this game to have future sequels as of right now. Game development takes a long time, and the industry is very unknown right now in regards to the future of studios and job stability. So, a smaller scale story that they can isolate in one game, with the potential to make sequels, seems like a smart financial move as well. So, I think that once Dreadwolf releases, BioWare will go full force with its N7 days, and its general focus on Mass Effect. We've already seen Destiny collaborations recently, and upcoming board games, as well as an uptick in merchandise, and I expect whatever N7 Day is after Dreadwolf's release will lean even more heavily into the detective interactive clue-finding experience from the last few years. This last N7 Day was awesome. It was fun to stream and to talk about stuff as it was revealed in real time, and I hope they continue doing that, but hopefully with some more concrete reveals in the future. So, here's my theory about this being an N7 agent and the future of Mass Effect 5, and its smaller scale spy thriller espionage Jack Bauer story possibility. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you'd like if Mass Effect 5 went this direction. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.